This is 5 seconds almost of not pressing one ability. That's purely because you were hoping for your necklace to proc, which means then you snapshot here, you empower rune weapon, which realistically you probably have your runes up anyways, so you didn't need to use that as an empowered rune weapon, right? Because your first rune usage was 5 seconds in, and we are now 15 seconds in. You didn't need to empower rune weapon. You have all of the runes you need to cast Army of the Dead. Warcraft logs is by far one of the best tools to help you improve at playing World of Warcraft. That doesn't matter if you're a healer, if you're a DPS, if you're a tank, if you play classic, or if you play retail, no matter what it is, being able to understand how to break down your logs and understand what you're looking for and how you can improve is going to be something that everyone should learn how to do. It's a skill that's not necessarily intuitive, and a lot of people can just look at the logs and have no idea what they're looking at and no idea what they need to do to actually play better. Well, today on stream, I started doing a ton of log reviews, and we're gonna do more on stream pretty much every day. But today I'm gonna try to give you guys a video or a snippet of me showcasing how you can read Warcraft logs and what you wanna look out for to improve yourself, how you can analyze your own gameplay, and also what you wanna be paying attention for by comparing yourself to a lot of the other people that have played the same class or done a similar situation, and where they are compared to where you are if they're getting something like the rank 1 in the world and you are trying to just get all of those 99s. And also, of course, guys, if you guys want a shot at actually having me do log reviews of your logs live on Twitch, make sure to like and subscribe and come over and hang out with me on Twitch. I stream every day, so just come hang out. Anyways, let's dive right in. Let's do this. Let's go through and see everything we can for all classes. Kevin, let's start with the Death Knight first. Death Knight is always easy to look at for me because I spend a lot of time looking at DK logs. Looking initially, obviously we can see it's a Frost DK. He's playing a Orc Frost DK. Awesome. Fairlina 96 average on this fight, which is pretty nice. 97 is the most recent one, and that's Nelk right here doing 97, beating out. Let's see, this is patchwork, 2 minutes and 5 second patchwork. So right now, a good place to look at for most like 99s is like you want to be around like a 2 minute mark. You'd like to. The world's fastest patchwork, and let me go grab that really fast as well. Complete raid patch, what, 120? So like, yeah, these patchworks are insane, and this probably has like a mage cheesing or something. Yeah, it's all Death Knights. Don't worry about that, dude. Literally, don't worry about that. In comparison, just for reference, right? One thing that makes everything a lot easier is always going to be a shorter kill time. It is quite literally very significant, right? Cracks DK, thank you so much for the tier 1, man. Appreciate that. It is quite literally extremely significant is kill times for parses, especially for Unholy DK. Unholy DKs love a short fight, but so does pretty much every race. This is the shortest patchwork in the world, and as you can see, we've got 100, 100, 100, 100, 100, everyone doing crazy DPS, almost 12k DPS. You're not going to do that. Don't worry about the hundreds though. Realistically, we're just looking at trying to get everybody to 99s, right? Okay. So we're going to start off with our boy Nelk here. He's got a 2 minute and 5 second fight. It was a 96, 91 eye level parse. That happens. It means your gear is pretty good. And 2 minutes is like an average length of this fight now for patchwork. And you can definitely get 99. 7,000 DPS, 7,201. First things we want to look at like what all you used. And you did use Army of the Dead. Did you use Army of the Dead during the fight? No, okay, you pre-popped Army of the Dead, so that's good. Look at your gear. Angry Dead or Angry Dread, Silent Crusader, Sigil of Awareness. Gear-wise, pretty decked out, actually. Pretty solid gear-wise, and also your engineering and jewel crafting, which always looks good, so that's nice to see. The first thing I would always look at for a Death Knight, oh my god. For one, your Bloodlust is 14 seconds into the fight. 13 and a half seconds into the fight, Bloodlust. So that hurts, right? That hurts. That's the first thing. Like, these are like the general things you can look at very early on to see how everything can get improved. So this hurts no matter what, right? This hurts everyone. It really hurts your Unholy DKs. But before this, look at the damage going out here, right? Your first cast is literally Frost Strike? No. First cast of Icy Touch is 4 seconds into the fight. First cast is 4 seconds into the fight. If you look at the just damage done, right? There's no damage really happening, and you're not even hitting the first melee isn't really coming in. Barely, right? So like around 4 seconds, you're finally touching the boss. This is kind of standard for most people for patchwork, but realistically, like, it shouldn't be. Does that make sense? Like, you're not really pressing any buttons at the beginning of this fight because you're not really doing any melee damage because you're afraid of over aggroing at the very beginning of patchwork. And that's like, it's like more of an antiquated way of dealing with things. If your tanks can't grab threat within the first, I mean, maybe you pulled them across the river, which is like 2 seconds, maybe not even. So you do want to attack faster. Ideally, if I was actually, this is going to be a good reference point. Let's look at like other fights, right? Nelk, is it Nel DK? Nel DK. If we look at like, okay, so cool. You have a 99 on Globulus. Go here to your 99 on Globulus. Go to Nel DK right here for your 99 on Globulus. And if we look at like the beginning of the fight, Globulus is another one that kind of sucks to get in early, but you probably rocket boots into Globulus, which is good, right? This literally shows like a better, much better situation. 5 seconds, 5.5-ish, a little bit longer, like 5.8 really, until the Bloodlust. Yeah, 5.89 right there. Until the Bloodlust, this is way better. And this is like more of your guild in general. So if you're looking at patchwork, the beginning of this patchwork is kind of rough, right? It is. An easy way also to start looking at things, of course, the opener is always really important. And you can either go to events or timelines. I kind of like both. Timelines is really aesthetic. Events is really ugly. We were going for Immortal. Oh, okay. So that's already, you know, right? We were going for Immortal, and I think I was on the tail end of Army Cast. So for starters, as a Frost Death Knight, in an ideal world, you precast Army of the Dead. You start that Army of the Dead whilst in Unholy Presence, and if you're cheesing or parsing or going for whatever, you could use a haste pot. You could also use a manual crowd pummeler just to help snapshot your Army of the Dead. That's fine. Moving on though, looking directly at your opener itself, right? If we look directly at your opener itself, you're doing Icy Touch, Plague Strike into an instant Frost Strike. If you can send me a message about my logs. Okay, yeah, we can do a call. All right, sounds good, Grill. Have a good one, man. Good night, brother. This opener is not your ideal opener, right? You literally are using two of your runes into a Frost Strike, into Blood Tap, Unbreakable Armor, Pestilence, Double Obliterate. A Double Obliterate after Empowered Rune Weapon. Was this a speed run? Do you not have runes right now? This opener is not an ideal opener. This is not an ideal opener. If we look at like just the table itself, you're doing 7k DPS on this opener, but that's Frost Strike carrying you, which is just sending a ton of your runic power. If we were to look at like, I don't know, let's look at like a very solid, right? Like this is going to be like a Chinese log. I'm gonna look at not a Chinese log for patchwork as a Frost Death Knight, just as a reference, right? We're gonna look at a reference for you. We're going obviously Death Knight. We're going Frost. We're going everything but China. Cool. All right. Cam on Gehennis. I want to see if there's someone I think that does really well, but let's do Cam on Gehennis. Okay. Okay. So this fight is obviously, it's not that much shorter than your fight, dude. This fight is 20 seconds shorter, but let's look at like the opener, right? This is gonna be huge, right? Timelines. Look at this, okay? So we have a triple blit opener right here, right? So there's an early drum speed. He did not get a precast off on this, which sucks, right? That sucks. Gets Ice Touch, Blood Tap, Unbreakable Armor, and you're spending your runes. Ideally, you spend your runes as early as possible, right? So you get your runes off CD. You don't want to start a fight with triple Frost Strike. That's spending, what, 90 runic power. spending 90 runic power right at the beginning, but leaving your runes on CD. Sorry for going here. So hitting with these frost strikes really is rough. Double frost strike before you get into any obliterates, and you don't get a triple obliterate off. So it was a scuffed opener, right? I think some pulled early, so I think it kind of scuffed. All right. Maybe we can go. Maybe we can go to. This was your best patchwork. So if we look at it outside of the opener, that's like the first thing, right? That's the first thing, and it's always going to be the first thing you want to look at. So if you guys watching right now or want to be able to break down your own logs, the first thing you're going to want to look at always is going to be your opener. Openers are much more significant in Wrath of the Lich King than they were in pretty much any other expansion so far in Classic, because you have an actual opener rotation. You didn't, in all honesty, you didn't have an opener rotation for the most part in any other version of Classic, right? Like I was able to, like, for log reviews of melee weaving, you would just try to see how much you were clipping, right? For log reviews of a hunter back in Wrath of the Lich King, how much you were clipping. For log reviews of a warlock, it was, did you get more casts off, and what was your RNG, right? Like what were your buffs and stuff like that. For here, opener is significant. It really sets you ahead. It really sets you ahead. And so if we look at, this is the first 20 seconds of your fight, and we look at this one, and let's go back to the first 20 seconds of this fight right here. Let's go to the first 20 seconds of this fight and look at the DPS difference. 10k DPS right here versus you were doing 7,000 DPS, right? So like that's going to be a huge thing, and all of that is going to be opener, right? Classic, OG Classic was all about uptime and debuffs on the boss. Now is actually a lot of your own rotation, things like this. And one thing that's actually interesting to see from this current rank 1 is that in combat, he actually hits his haste pot. So he didn't get a pre-pot. Technically, pre-pots aren't that large, but, and also this fight is actually shorter, so he wouldn't want a pre-pot. He wouldn't have a minute. Yeah, so he could. But this fight is pretty short. You don't really need a pre-pot for if the fight's like at this length. You want your pot to have as much uptime during your actual bloodlust. So it is very solid, right? If you look into buffs here, unbreakable armor with blood tap, blood fury. Eventually we're going to end up moving with like a blood tap cancel, which will be sick when we get into blood unholy or sub unholy spec, which will be nice. Leader of the pack falls for a second for some random reason. Unbreakable armor is phenomenal uptime. Blood fury, phenomenal uptime. This is obviously just for the beginning of the fight too. If I go all the way back to the full fight and we look at buffs, we're going to see unbreakable armor used twice. Blood tap obviously used twice. Staggered the second time because it was used for a triple obliterate, most likely for the second time. Blood fury, you only have one use of blood fury. Actually, no, this is a lie. Why? Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. One use of blood fury. You only have one use of blood fury. Use it with the bloodlust. Okay. Anything else? He got lucky. 5 freezing fog procs, and he's a tailor because it's cheesing. So that's it. 2 uses of gloves and 1 potion. Cool. If we look at yours and we look at the entire fight. Let me just go all the way back to the whole thing. And perfect. We look at buffs. Buff uptime. Bloodlust was obviously late. You've used Blood Fury before the Bloodlust, so you've already used CDs before the Bloodlust, which sucks, right? You're not using all of your CDs during Bloodlust, which is also Unbreakable Armor, another one of them, right? So that feels bad. You were finishing your cast of Army of the Dead, it seems, at the very beginning, which is a reason why that ninja pull did hurt you. Your blood taps are timed. Your blood tap might be even linked into your unbreakable armor, which I might suggest staggering so you can go into a triple obliterate rotation, but it's fine off of the blood tap. That's always nice. You get 17 procs of Killing Machine, really nice. You only get 1 proc of Freezing Fog. Honestly, it's not that big of a deal, but you'll notice if you were to look at like the difference between Howling Blast damage, obviously you only used it once, right? I use Blood Tap UA in the opener. Yes, you should. Yeah, Blood Tap Blood Tap Unbreakable Armor, great in the opener of a Frost DK. Great in the opener of a Frost DK. You do get 2 speed pots out, which is nice. At least you did get a pre-pot, which also means your Army of the Dead was then snapshotted. The thing that sucks is this first speed pot did not get that much usage during your actual Bloodlust, because your Bloodlust was like a very scuffed. And you also have a, dude, you're in like a parse raid or what? You also have an unbreakable or like an indestructible pot. So you have an armor pot, which is literally looking at it from the most of a parse perspective possible, right? 2 minutes before the fight, you used an indestructible pot. Exactly a minute before the, exactly a minute later, you use your normal haste pot as your pre-pot, and then you have like 40 seconds of indestructible pots still rolling. So this is really, really nice, right? For parsing, I would say the biggest thing that hurts you is for sure going to be this late Bloodlust and your opener. If we just look at purely that, if we look at next, if we kind of like also a good way to compare yourself to someone else is see what damage breakdowns you have. And if you look at like, it's a similar length fight, but if I just put it to a 143, right? 143, let's just say right there, right? Let's, as a reference, let's look right here, right? Melees are 27% of your DPS, 22% because obliterates are 17 and frost strikes are 15. Your obliterates are significantly lower. You have 13 casts of obliterate compared to 24 casts of obliterate. So, you know what's happening here? A lot of trying to go for those triple obliterates, getting extra obliterates in and prioritizing that. Did you actually end up having to cast anything twice? No, so you didn't drop your diseases ever. Didn't drop your diseases ever. But you used 7 casts of Howling Blast when you didn't get... You used 7 casts of Howling Blast, but you weren't getting Freezing Fog procs. Like in this distance, you literally didn't get 1 Freezing Fog proc. Those 7 casts of Howling Blast should have literally all been obliterates, which would put you at 20 obliterates, which puts you a lot closer. Obliterate would then be your second most damage dealing ability, right? So that's the just like initially looking at this, this is the biggest, most glaring mistake. And if anyone doesn't know, that's not a Death Knight, right? Freezing Fog, I keep saying Freezing Frog, is the proc that happens that makes your Howling Blast free. It costs no runes. You never want to spend runes on Howling Blast. Never. Literally never use runes on Howling Blast. Only ever use them on Obliterate in a single target situation, okay? So, and we're looking at Patchwork, so you would never use your Freezing Frogs on Obliterate. Your Army of the Dead gets 40k DPS out. Also, we don't see Raised Dead. Here it is. Okay, your Ghoul does 14k damage. If we look here, Ghoul does 35k damage. You want to know why? I'm just gonna say it right now. Do you guys want to know why? Or you guys know? All right, chat, tell me why. So if anyone doesn't know, Ghouls for Frost Death Knights do snapshot. They do snapshot the same way a gargoyle would snapshot, and we'll look at Unholy DKs in a second. Ghoul absolutely snapshots. Army of the Dead, we all know Army of the Dead snapshots. If you don't know how that works, it snapshots off each individual ghoul that's summoned. Like they literally have their own individual snapshots. Kind of crazy, right? How can I see the opener? I'll show that one more time. The easiest way to look at an opener is to go into timelines personally for casts, right? This is the easiest way to see it aesthetically. So you can see it all lined up. The best way to actually giga break it down would be to do it within events, because you can see at the literal like 1/1000th of a second when everything is cast, right? But casts is where you're looking at what casts are happening in a row, right? And if you were to look here, right, like always going for double obliterates as often as possible, right? And these Howling Blasts are yours. These Howling Blasts are yours. But if we were to look at like, let's look at this whole thing. Let's go to cast. Let's go to events. Not raise dead. Exit this. And what you just saw there also for people that aren't super into logs is you can check exactly when every single ability is cast and how often, right? By going into all abilities right there, just for people who don't know logs super well. So in the opener, just for reference, right? We see a quadruple obliterate kind of situation, right? Like empowered rune weapon should be used to get a triple oblit out. Perfect. He got a proc, so he did Howling Blast into a triple frost strike, which is just utilizing all of these frost strikes and then getting back into having all of your runes back, because the last obliterate was at 7 seconds. This one is now at 18.5, which means there was 1 second utilized here for rune grace period. That's probably pretty intricate for people that don't understand Death Knights, but your runes come back up after 10 seconds every time, and you have an extra 2.5 seconds to use those runes without losing out on anything. So that was really nice, right? If I scroll down, you can see that Blood Tap was used again for another triple obliterate, and this is something I really want Frost DKs to focus on doing. This is the rank 1 in the world, right? Is to try to utilize your Blood Tap if you can for another triple obliterate, right? Which means staggering the second Blood Tap off of unbreakable armor. So I wouldn't have these bound together. Ideally, I would focus on your next cast, your second unbreakable armor, you use it, and then your third cast into a triple obliterate. And actually, I'll be honest, there might be a way to optimize this better, but this tends to be the best from all the logs I've been going through, right? So Frost DK ever army mid-fight? Frost Death Knights never army mid-fight. And that, realistically, right, that's like the fastest way to break down your log versus theirs. And I can get more intricate into it if we look at more things, but I think that's a pretty decent summary, right? To focus on the first log, right? Really, really good job. What's the significance of triple obliterate? Obliterate hits the hardest, right? If we look at here and we also look here, not in timelines, I go to tables again, and we look at obliterate, average cast 6.8 thousand damage, average cast and average hit perfect 7.4, right? Obliterates hit the hardest. And if we look here, obliterate 6.9. It literally hits more than anything other than like a good Howling Blast obviously doesn't hit as hard, but that was actually didn't get that many crits. Okay. That was a pretty shitty crit percentage. Howling Blast can do decent. Your Army of the Dead or your Raise Dead, right? Like literally Raise Dead is the highest damage per single cast, right? This is a 36-ish, 35.7k damage Raise Dead. The next one was, I believe it's Me Stevie DK, okay? Me Stevie DK, Grobulus, 1 minute and 27 second Grobulus. Bloodlust used 5.89 seconds into the fight. It's always the first thing you kind of look at is when's Bloodlust used. Okay. Gargoyle, 173k damage Gargoyle. Really fucking nice. Really, really nice Gargoyle. And this is standard, right? Just from looking at this, ideally, right? This is pretty standard right away. Is your Gargoyle on a fight this short should do the most damage, then your melees, then your pet. Okay? That's just like how it is. Army of the Dead not used on this fight. I would assume it was used on Patchwork, and you probably don't have it up, and you're going to use it on Thaddeus, right? Unless you're parsing. Okay. Death and Decay, Death Coil, Necrosis for your weps, Bloodcake Blades here. Okay. Let's look at the opener. Again, this is going to be something to look at. Opener. We do see a Skyflare Swiftness. This means that he has the Haste Meta Gem up. So there's a haste meta gem. First, we can look at the gear really fast. Damn, pretty nice. I mean, Broken Promise main hand, Grass Cutter offhand with a black magic on it. For the most, like, I mean, Obsidian Great Helm, Gem within Prison, Vassals, really nice. Rivet of A-bombs, juicy, absolutely juicy. Using Sabaton's as 7 reprisal, giving you extra haste. Braces of the Tyrant, also haste. Really nice. Haste is beautiful. Savage Gladiator, Sigil of Strife. It'd be nice if you had a higher one, like Deadly. Deadly is only 1400 rating, so I would farm that, but it is what it is, right? How long before boss pull do you cast Army of the Dead? You can cast it like, be an Unholy Presence, cast Army of the Dead, switch to Blood Presence, then you'll have like a couple seconds, or not even, really. It depends if you're haste potting also. So Gargoyle, if you're an Unholy DK, I personally don't haste pot. I think it's not worth it. Yeah. If we look at buffs, all right, see how things lined up. We have Blood Fury, so that's the cast. We have Unholy Strength, which is proccing kind of late, which sucks, right? Unholy Strength procs a little bit late, which kind of sucks. It does overlap with Black Magic, though. It does overlap with Meteorite Whetstone. It does overlap with Blood Fury. It does overlap with Potion of Speed. Does not overlap, barely overlaps with Sky Flare Swiftness. Let me just scroll down so you guys can see this a little bit better. Barely overlaps with Sky Flare Swiftness, which is the meta gem. So he's using the Swiftness meta gem. Cool. If we look at the opener, let's say the first 25 seconds. This is going to be by far the most important section for an Unholy DK. Go to cast. We have a Death and Decay opener into an Icy Touch, Plague Strike, Blood Strike. Instantly uses CDs and a Gargoyle. Buffs, buffs, table view. Right after, instantly goes into the Gargoyle, doesn't wait. You do have Skyflare Swiftness, you do have Greatness, you do have Meteorite Whetstone, you do have Desolation up, it doesn't matter. Hyperspeed Accelerators and Speed is yourself. The only thing you're missing would be to try to wait a second for your Fallen Crusader proc. Black Magic is procced, right? So the only thing would be to wait a second for Fallen Crusader proc, right? So there isn't a Fallen Crusader proc rolling, and it procs like within the next second, actually, which means it could help. It absolutely could help to wait, right? It absolutely could help to wait. But I think this is like more of like what you would see as like a scripted opener, right? If you look at timeline view again, and I get rid of Summon Gargoyle, it's like more of like a scripted opener per se, is because this boss is moving Grobulus, so you get out your D&D early because you want it to have as much uptime inside of the Death and Decay before it moves, and you try to lead with your Death and Decay. Always jump and place your Death and Decay early, right? Or like in front of the boss, because this boss is always moving. We're always kiting Grobulus. So always jump because it increases the radius by 2 yards or 2 meters in every direction of Death and Decay whenever you do that because of leeway. Always do that. And then it is nice on this fight to open with D&D. What's up? Hi, Bem. What, do you want something? Oh, hi, babies. Then an Icy Touch, Plague Strike, Blood Strike. Does Blood Strike miss, or is there actually 2 casts of Blood Strike? Blood Strike. Blood Strike again. I don't know why this was done. Blood tap into blood. Maybe you needed the runic power. You might have needed the runic power. I'm fine with it. You could do a blood boil there instead. Slightly higher damage percentage generally if we go to tables, right? Blood boil, average cast 3k. Blood strike, average cast literally half that damage. Like actively half that damage, even though it did not crit in this section. Blood boil hits harder, obviously, right? The blood tap could have been used though on a Ghoul Frenzy. Agreed. The blood tap could have been used then on a Ghoul Frenzy, which would have been nice. Or even you could have not blood tap. Blood tap itself can give you, it does give you runic power. So that probably would have capped you on runic power and made it fine for you. It's fine. Looking back into the event, or looking back in the timeline view, you instantly then cast all of your CDs. These are tied together, I'm assuming, as a macro. Macro these together. And then you're using speed into a summon gargoyle, into empowered rune weapon, blood presence. It would have been nice if you could have then obviously blood tapped blood presence, or empowered rune weapon, use CDs. Because now you don't have your gargoyle or your ghoul frenzy rolling. This is like this is what feels a little bad here, is right? You don't have ghoul frenzy rolling, which is hurts, right? He doesn't have army, right? So he doesn't have army. In an ideal world, what you would do would be like empowered rune weapon, army, blood presence. Then you've got your blood tap rolling, right? You refresh your diseases and you get going, right? In an ideal opener, but this is Grobulus, and we're looking at one of the fights that needs to be improved on. So one thing is either try to have some runic power beforehand. Don't blood tap into a blood strike. That's a small thing. If you can, I would go with like a ghoul frenzy, but you can also just use a blood boil here. But right now your ghoul frenzy's not up, right? So like if we go to like, just do this really fast, right? Go to Grob and we go to, where's the first ghoul frenzy? "32 seconds into the fight, you get your ghoul frenzy up. I don't know if there's a precasted ghoul frenzy. I doubt it, because you do get a cast up of, or you do instantly proc your Darkmoon card Greatness. And the issue with Darkmoon card Greatness, for some reason, it procs off Ghoul Frenzy, which is really lame. Honestly, super lame. It also procs off of like Men Pet and stuff, right? So, unless you swapped your trinkets and got a Ghoul Frenzy early, it's good, right? Unless you swap your trinkets and Ghoul Frenzy early, like swap your trinkets 30 seconds in, Ghoul Frenzy. Now you've got 30, like swap your trinkets 30 seconds before pull, Ghoul Frenzy 10 seconds before pull. That's ideal, right? That's ideal. I do trinket swap at the beginning of the 10-second timer, then use Ghoul. See, you can do that. Like in an ideal world, you would swap your trinkets. I mean, that works if you have a late lust, right? But in an ideal world, you swap your trinkets 30 seconds before the pull, because it puts them on their ICD, and then you Ghoul Frenzy 10 seconds before pull. This happens this way, but this Ghoul Frenzy is really late, right? A 32-second in Ghoul Frenzy literally means your Ghoul is fighting for 32 seconds of this minute and a half. A third of this fight, your Ghoul does not have buffs on it. A third of this fight, your Ghoul does not have buffs on it. That feels bad. Honestly, that in itself just feels bad. And that's like the biggest flaw, is obviously that you can see what went on with the opener. It happens, right? You got a little bit unlucky with this Unholy Strength being late, and in all honesty, you could have waited for it and attempted to wait for it until like the last split second of Skyflare Swiftness. I would have gone for that, but since you did get a Skyflare Swiftness, it's fair to assume that you went with that proc, the haste, which is what, 440 haste, I believe, is the exact amount from Skyflare, which is the metagem proc. And the metagem literally is so RNG, it's crazy. The proc rate is pretty low. It actually ends up proccing twice during this fight. You don't do like any weapon swaps as an Unholy DK. You can if you wanted to like aggressively min max. And we'll look at this one more time. Let me just pull up, like, this is going to be like, okay, perfect. Like a Chinese log where someone's doing something insane, right? Let's go to just like a patchwork, and it's going to be a Chinese log because that's life, right? A Chinese log where someone's doing insane for this fight, right? 260,000 damage from Gargoyle. 120k damage from Army of the Dead. You want to know why? Because they're doing the cheesiest shit possible. Edward's Insight, Signet of Edward the Odd, 125 haste. Skyflare Swiftness, 480 haste from the metagem. Fire Shield, obviously, that's whatever. Oil of Immolation, okay? A little bit of damage that ended up giving him 3.4 DPS. It's a fucking whatever. Mark of Nomergan. This thing is actually phenomenal. Mark of Nomergan, honestly, probably the best for parsing. And also probably best for speedruns. I would highly suggest everybody try to get Mark of Nomergan if you're an Unholy DK. Okay. If we looked at gear, Gear, we see Angry Dead, Hailstorm, Angry Dread in the main hand, Hailstorm in the offhand, Deadly Gladiator sigil, the Juicy sigil, obviously. You're always, if you're looking at people parsing, they're going to be tailors, so just ignore that for now. Signet of Edward the Odd is the ring I was just talking about, which is nice. And you're going to itemize slightly differently, right? Because you do have a lot of expertise here. So you're going to look at things that don't have as much expertise on your other pieces. You're going to look at a lot of haste. Haste is really good. But if we look, he's probably gonna, I'm gonna assume we're gonna see something a little bit cheeky here. So let me see. Okay, so we're not in this fight. We're not, oh, here we do. Here we go. 4 procs of Berserk. This is the thing. This is the thing I wanted to show you guys. This is a thing that Unholy DKs can do, is swap on after you get something like, Unholy Frenzy, right? Any of your other procs, right? Greatness is here, but you also have, where's Black Magic? Black Magic is right here. Black Magic procs. Oh, you got a Black Magic proc? Switch on a Berserking weapon. That's super min-maxing. And now you've got your ring proc, right? You got, and then you pop Hyperspeed Accelerators. He waited until Sky Flare Diamond or Sky Sweat Flare, so the meta gem proc, waited until that to pop everything. Black Magic was still up. This was being cautious, right? Waited until had both tailoring proc. Obviously, you still have your Darkmoon card Greatness proc. Unholy Strength is procced, and Berserk is procced. Black Magic procced like almost insta. And Black Magic, after you swap off that weapon, stays. Stays. How ridiculous is that? This is how you get a insane 260,000 damage gargoyle. 260,000, 74 cast, average hit, 6.8, 3.6. I obviously have dyslexia, so guys, you guys don't be rude, okay? Just in the, look at this fight. Look at this. 15k DPS was this first half of the fight. 15k DPS. Chinese logs are just phenomenal, right? It is what it is. You can't compete with, but you can technically compete, obviously, in Berserking. Okay, let me go back though. You can compete, but obviously the same thing, right? So this is an Unholy DK. Also, this Unholy DK does not have Berserking, so you have Blood Fury. So what your Gargoyle did was 173k. It could have done slightly more if you had waited literally a second to pop Gargoyle, because you got unlucky with your main hand weapon proc. It is fine. But that's a really good fight, and it could have done more. Your Gargoyle could have done more. Everything else looks pretty standard. The opener was a little bit off, but that's easy to adjust. So, all right, let's look at Scatter. All right, on to our first Hunter. Okay, a Noobercon, 1 minute 3 seconds. I don't know. That feels like a relatively long-ish noob. No, I don't know. I'd have to actually, let's look at this first. Okay, you're doing the #1 DPS in your raid. The raid DPS is actually pretty decently solid. I mean, I wish this Unholy DK did way more damage. This Bloodlust is 8.5 seconds into the fight, which is like crazy to me. I would be pissed off if that was, which is crazy. I would be super annoyed if this was a fact, okay? One thing about a Noobercon, do know his ads do count as damage. You can see the damage to the Crypt Guards, right? The Crypt Guards do count as damage that goes onto the logs. So that means Explosive Trap. Hunters always want to Explosive Trap weave. Anyways, you're trap weaving no matter what. And it looks like you have a pretty good usage of this. You've got 5 usages of Explosive Trap. If I was just breaking this down like without even going to anything, this is actually pretty nice. From there alone, right? Explosive Shot, your #1 DPS, Explosive Trap, and then Auto Shot. Explosive Trap is doing more than your auto shots here because of it hitting multiple targets. So that is nice. Yeah. Using multi-shot here, I mean, you're using multi-shot right now in the rotation anyways for survival instead of aimed. It's almost the exact same, and you can use that point elsewhere. But this is really nice. You kind of want to prioritize this. Servicing and a bomb. I would have loved to see a sapper when you move in, especially in a 1 minute fight. I would have loved to see a sapper instead of a bomb. If we go into buffs, Actually, first of all, let's go into debuffs, enemies, sources, scatter. 89% uptime of Serpent Sting. That's pretty, it's pretty solid. It's pretty solid. That's not bad. It could be slightly better, obviously. But like, I mean, if I were to look at like what your first casts were, right? Not ranking, sorry. Events, first casts on this fight. Friendlies, all friendlies, and let's look at scatter. Now let's go timeline so people can see it. Okay. Doesn't like that. Do I have it on buff still? Oh no, that's why, because I don't have it on casts. All right. First cast is explosive shot. Get explosive shot on CD. Love it, actually. Kill command, fine, yeah. I'm assuming it's like macroed in, maybe even. Serpent Sting is your next cast. Love it. You instantly then move into explosive trap. It's nice. I wonder, it'd be nice if you rocket booted into this, get this first explosive trap. If you're a hunter, it's really nice to do like a rocket boots in to do your first explosive trap, because specifically because then it puts you in position really close to where the boss is going to be, and your next movements will all be smaller, right? That first movement is always the longest one. Lock and load into so explosive, explosive, explosive. So these are looks like you're doing the different ranks, right? Oh no. Actually, I like this. Your first so you're actually not doing the different ranks, and this is even better. You're actually hitting explosive shot on all 3 of the mobs. This is actually beautiful. You don't even need to go to the Crypt Guard 1. You have to actually rotate back to a Nubricon after the first one. But this is nice to see. As for rotation, like everything seems really nice and clean. I don't know why this haste pod is so late though, but I don't really see much of an issue with it. When you've got rapid fire and you're waiting until rapid fire is basically over and then you're haste podding, haste isn't like the most ridiculous thing right now. On this fight, it could be potentially nice to wild magic, but that's like, I'm not 100% sure. That would be for the Hunter Discord. That's pretty easy, right? Engineering boots in. That's it. Uptime of Serpent Sting could slightly be better, but it doesn't matter. Really good usage of explosive shot and really good usage of trap weaving. That's juicy. I love it. Let's see. Let's move on. Kevin. On to Kevin. 93 patchwork. You know why? For starters, you're an arcane mage and your patchwork fight is 2 minutes and 47 seconds long. That's the first takeaway. So we're going to look at if this fight was 1 minute, 2 minutes and 15-ish seconds. Okay. So arcane mages live in a similar world to Unholy DKs, where they are the two probably hit the most from fight length, right? Fight length is probably the worst thing to hit you, right? Now, I don't play an arcane mage, so I can't tell you exactly how to do this. You know who can? Anyone who gets like a rank 1. Let's look at like any rank 1 arcane mages, right? Again, we're gonna look outside of, actually, should we even, maybe we will look at just Chinese logs. Foji, aha! Perfect. Let's look at our boy Foji, okay? 9,400 DPS is his patchwork. It's 1 minute and 48 seconds. This is fucking crazy damage. All right. So for reference, he obviously doesn't need, your fights lengths are different. So he can cast more arcane blasts where you have to use more arcane missiles. That's obviously hurting you, right? 76% of his damage is coming from arcane blasts, and literally 63 of 64-ish of yours is, that's 12% of your main ability of damage that you can't do, right? That hurts, right? That obviously hurts. He's actually rocking Potion of Speed here, increasing haste rating, and you're rocking Potion of Wild Magic. Now we have to look at what innervates we're getting, right? Because Foji might just be being fed. Thank you, baby. Guys, say thank you, Rachel. She's making us food for doing log reviews for you guys while she's sick. While she's sick. Okay, he's getting 2 innervates here. You're getting none, right? You're getting none. This innervate is fucking big, right? Innervate is huge. And there's a power infusion. Innervate and power infusion, those in general are ridiculous, right? You literally just get bloodlust. And that sucks, right? Foji has 2 innervates and PI. That changes multiple things. One, obviously, he doesn't have to cast any of his like mitigation or any arcane missiles because he's not worried about mana. He's literally being fed innervates. So this is really hard. And then I'm gonna send a screenshot of this. Grandmaster, I'm literally sending a screenshot of this and sending it to Rachel, saying we appreciate you. Get well soon. I'm sending this to her because she's really sick and she just made me food, guys. So huge shout out to the girlfriend who keeps us being able to stream. So that's like, okay, for one, I would take that as like the biggest, like there's nothing you can do about that situation unless you can get the innervates and the PI. Okay, from there, also if we look at something like his crit percentage on this fight is literally fucking pretty much 70%. You're not hit capped. Wee woo, you're not hit capped. Kevin. Wee woo number 1. Okay. Average cast, average hit. If we look at 9.1, his hit harder, but he's obviously got more crits. Slightly. So he's got more gear than you as well. If we looked at like, if we compared gear, thank you, unknown items. Whatever. I can see your tier gear using pretty decent. It looks good. Life and death. I can bet Foji has fucking whatever this stupid thing is. Oh no, life and death also. Oh shoot balls. I bought this for 1.6k, guys. Easy clap. Embrace and Sundial. Dying Curse Sundial. 71 hit. Embrace. Dying Curse is pretty juicy, so there's a gear differential. There is a gear differential, but realistically, like the biggest thing is probably those PIs and innervates. Those really add up. If I were to look at, let's see, like Icy Veins into PI at the end of it. If I look at your buffs, right? Your presence of mind is early, and you get to, because you get 2 PIs. He's only gonna get 1. Actually, no. In this same, we're at a similar. No, we're not in similar length. Sorry. All right. Is there a reason, this is something for all you guys in the Mage Discord or the Mage Big Brains, is there a reason to use your PI or presence of mind, sorry, palm right after your Icy Veins, like Arcane Power, Icy Veins, palm right at the end? So we got Arcane Power, Icy Veins, palm before that. My opener was F. I should have palmed first. Okay, Kev. So that's fair. You have tailoring buff, which is nice. Embrace, also nice. Hyperspeed accelerators, you love to see it. I'd say the biggest thing, like, okay, for one, wild magic potting versus speed potting, I don't know the breakdown, but I would take a look at it, right? He's using speed pot, you're using wild magic. I don't know maybe going for speed haste is like definitely more RNG based, right? Because he also got more crits than you, so it's more RNG based. That's something for the Mage Discord, but it's how you look at it. Usually pre-pot wild magic during speed and speed during boss. Okay, or mana if I don't get innervates. Got it. See. Yeah, you use the runic mana injector because you don't get an innervate here. That is, I mean, that's pretty much what it is, right? That's another big thing coming down to it. And if you also, like, if I was to look at, like, the same vein, right? If you look at tables, you can always see, like, cast per minute, right? CPM, right here. Your CPM is really high. It's most likely more CPMs, like you have more like Missile Barrage and Arcane Missiles though, because you have to, right? Thank you guys for submitting all of these logs, and hopefully this helps you really see how you can break down the logs and see where you can compare things. Obviously, I have knowledge of some of these classes, so I can see something myself and tell you, oh, this is wrong, this is wrong. But the biggest way to do it yourself in any class is to legitimately go to one of the #1s in the world and look at their rotation, mainly focus on the opener. But if there's something that's glaring to you, right? Obviously, if they get different buffs than you, like they get PI and their fight's shorter, they're gonna do better. But if their opener is different than you, why? Why is their opener rotation different than you? Because openers are one of the biggest things in the game. Next things, I mean, if you're a Affliction Warlock, I would look at your debuff uptime on the boss. That's huge. And similar vein, like Frost Death Knights, if you ever let your actual diseases fall, if you ever have to cast a diseases a second time, that's a mistake. Do you get out triple obliterates? That's specifically, obviously, to Frost Death Knight. For an Unholy DK, did you get a really good snapshot? For like Ferals, did you get, like, there's a lot of RNG in Feral, but also a lot of skill in Feral. It's very intricate, and it'd be like, going through that log perfectly would take me a long time, and I didn't want to like bog this video down. There was a person we went over today that used Scourge Strike. That is, I'm just going to be honest with you, not something you use this phase literally at all. Do not have that talent, drop it instantly, move away from that. I obviously have a trained eye again, so like if I just see something, if I open a log, I can be like, that looks off, right? That looks off, that looks off. But that is the biggest way of kind of deciding for yourselves. And one more time, guys, thank you so much for submitting your logs. I'll do more log reviews tomorrow after raids, so make sure you're there for my raid tomorrow if you want to come and hang out. And I'll do more log reviews like every day this week as I can, right?